about you?
Excuse me, 1 second.
Sure.
After she's finished. What
Yeah.
time is? What time is it?
How long are you gonna be, Jocelyn? It's 20 after 8.
2 hours.
All right,
How long are
we're
you
good.
doing?
Yeah, you take your time.
Oh gosh. I can do it in 5 minutes if you want.
20 minutes?
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Okay.
Half
Just
an
give me a
hour.
signal.
Okay, okay. So then 20 minutes now, we just have to close 9.
Yeah, well, you're not in a real big hurry tonight, are you? Okay, enjoy the evening.
What? 2 hours?
Timing starts now, go.
Okay, alright. I'm Jocelyn. I'm sure some of you have seen my blog. I write a blog, it's called Relic Recoverist. And I also write a column for American Digger magazine. You can find me on the last page, probably after all the ads and stuff. They gave me 500 words, so make sure you check that out. I realize that I probably can't teach you guys a whole lot. Probably a lot of you have been metal detecting longer than I've been alive. But I guess I'm going to talk about what I enjoy about metal detecting and what drew me to the hobby as a 26-year-old mother of 2. Not typical, I guess. Sorry, this is my first time public speaking. I'm really nervous about it. But I want it to be real casual, so if you have any questions while I'm talking, feel free to just call
Throw
out.
something at her.
Yeah, throw something at me. I guess I started out with dump digging when I was a teenager living in Rhode Island. We had a dump behind our house, and I'd always go out there and drag home bottles and Crocs and fill my parents' shed with all these colorful bottles. There was really no method to my madness. It was just kind of like, oh, this one's pretty, and so I just brought them home, and my dad would always say I was picking up junk. He called it trash and garbage, but I've always been attracted to old stuff, so naturally, I guess it was about a year ago, I took my kids for a walk in the woods, and the leaves had just started to fall, and I let my almost 2-year-old, she was 1 then, carry my keys, because I thought, oh, well, she can play with my keys, it'll keep her entertained. Well, by the time we went out in the woods, went around on our walk, got back to the car, the keys were gone. So I put out a plea on Craigslist, and I was like, somebody with a metal detector, please come to my rescue. I mean, we were like stuck. The car was locked. There was no way to get in. So I put out this plea on Facebook, and some lady was like, yeah, sure, I'll come out and help you. And she came out, and sure enough, she found the keys. But then I was like, you know what, I've really liked the idea of metal detecting in the past. I've always liked old stuff. I was a picker for a while. I still am. My garage is like completely packed. My husband is always on my case about bringing home stuff. But yeah, so I was like, all right, I'll give metal detecting a try. And I joined some of the social networking groups on Facebook. I was like, hey, I'm interested in getting started metal detecting. And sure enough, you know, you go on those groups and you're like, I want a metal detector, and all the dealers just jump on you like, oh yeah, sure, I'll sell you a metal detector.
Did Don?
No, he didn't, not on Facebook. But so yeah, I jumped on Facebook and I was like, I'm interested in a metal detector. My budget's like, you know, $600, and they're like, oh, you don't need $600. You know, what if you don't like it? You know, you're $600 in the hole on this metal detector. So I ended up with the Ace 250, which was a good starter machine. But right off the bat, I was detecting with like guys with, you know, the nice whites machines with the VDI numbers, and it was just really hard for me to, you know, see them, oh, this is ringing in at blah, 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 and I'm like, where's the numbers on this thing? So I guess one of the first times I went out, we went to this field. Someone put on Facebook, hey, I'm detecting the Civil War field and I'm looking for people to help me with it. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go. I mean, I'd never been out before. So we went out to this field and I was just digging every single hit. And I think the best thing I came home with that day was a rusted crowbar. But I just thought it was the coolest thing because it was, I was like, oh, Civil War relics. And I found this crowbar from the Civil War. I'm not sure what they used it for, but So that was my first experience. Well, actually, I take that back. My first experience metal detecting, I just, it came in the box. I opened it up, put on my hat with my ear flaps. I think it was December. I mean, it was cold, and I was like, I got this new metal detector. So I put on my fur cap with my ear flaps. Roman's seen it, my white one. You know the one, right, Roman? And I went out the back door, and I went out in the woods, and we live on the orchards over in Gardeners. And so you live in apple country, the farmers will hang pie tins from the trees to keep the deer away. Well, I dug up so many pie tins that day. And I walked down through the orchard and around, and I was going up this road. And actually my first find I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I'm digging, and it's December. The ground is frozen. I'm digging in gravel because it's like along this gravel road. And I kept digging, and I'm like, what is this? I'm putting my pinpointer down. Whatever it is, it's really big. And it was a culvert. It was a culvert. I was so disappointed. I was like, I'm never telling anyone this story, and here I am. So that was actually my first find, and then the crowbar. And so then it got really cold, and I think I spent a majority of the winter just learning from people on Facebook, seeing the finds from the people that are down south, and got to metal detect all winter long. And I spent a lot of the time just getting permissions to different places, just driving around. We'd go on adventures. I tell my kids, just get them excited about it. I have a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. So when we go metal detecting, it's like a whole production. It's like, all right, making sure we got the diapers and the wipes and the snacks and the juice. But when we were going on our adventures, I'd load them in the car. I'd be like, all right, let me just drive around looking for old houses, because I'm really into old houses. That's like my weakness. And I heard the rumors of this house in Lattimore Township, the Wright House. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. I know back in the 60s, they used to take field trips out to it, and it was instrumental in the Underground Railroad. And I can't remember the couple's name who actually ran it, who ran that house. Their last name was Wright, obviously, but I can't remember their first names. But it's this house out in the middle of a field. And when I went to ask permission for it, I stopped at the township office, and I was like, hey, I heard rumors about this house, I don't know where it is. And the police chief, I think, was the person I talked to. He's like, yeah, I'll give him a call and let him know you're coming, and you could just stop on by. And I was like, oh man, I love this small town, that's awesome. So he gave him a call, they didn't answer. He said, just stop on by. So I drove around looking for this house. I didn't know what I was looking for. He's like, it's down the long driveway. Of course, out in the country, it's like everyone has a long driveway. So I ended up, my kids are in the back of the car. We go down this long driveway to this dairy farm. And my dad grew up on a dairy farm, so I know that smell. But it was like, all right, we're here, guys. But we all piled out of the car, and I went and I'm knocking on this door to the barn, because obviously I was like, well, they must be in there. And actually, I heard the owner in there, and I don't know if anyone knows her, but don't tell her this, but she was like belting out the lyrics to this song that was playing on the radio, and I was like, I know she's in there. So I was knocking, and eventually she must have heard me, and she came out, and I just started right on my speech. I'm like, hi, I'm Jocelyn, I have a blog, can I metal detect on your property? And I've never been good at public speaking. It's like my worst fear, so obviously. But yeah, she was really nice, and her first comment was, we didn't have the money to restore it. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. I don't really care about the house. I want to detect the property. So she was kind of like hesitant, because I guess in the past, the Historical Society have put a lot of pressure on them to get the house fixed, because it's a historical landmark. I mean, to have that significant Underground Railroad history. But she eventually gave me permission, and I promised her I'm coming back when it's spring. And she walked us out to the car, and at the time I had started my own estate liquidation business, because I'm into antiques and vintage stuff, and I see value in stuff that other people would just throw away. So I had this frame in my front yard, and it was this charcoal drawing of this older couple. And she was just like, that is so cool, and she loved it. So the next day, well, in my garage, I call it my gallery. And every time I see a painting that I like, I buy it. And in my garage, I have the whole wall is just covered in all these paintings. And there was this one painting I had on my wall that was this picture of like cats playing with yarn or whatever, but the frame is just this gold gilt frame. So the next day I drove it out to her house and gave it to her. And the subject of my blog that day was, you need to show homeowners your appreciation when you're going out there asking for permission, because they really have no reason to give you permission to dig up their property. So I was really lucky to get that permission. And sure enough, when it got warmer, I had met Roman on Facebook, and I was like, hey, you want to go detect this property with me? And we head out there, and it had just rained, like torrential downpour, and it was so muddy. And this house, you actually had to walk half a mile across the fields to get to this house, because it's in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. So we walked out, we checked out. She couldn't drive us out because of the mud. And we spent, 4 or 5 hours detecting this house. I don't think we found really anything. He found part of a cowbell that was really neat, and a buckle. And I found a bottle that was, I don't even know, some old heartburn stuff, which I thought was awesome. I'm like, oh, I found this bottle. But the really cool part was just being there and experiencing that history and knowing that, slaves looked at this house as like a symbol of their freedom. And for me, it's about the experience of metal detecting. I've never really found anything that I can brag about. But I just like being out there and experiencing the history and being able to take it all in. And I write about it in my blog, which if you want to check out, I have some cards in my purse I can hand out if you want to see it. If you haven't already seen it, I'm all over Facebook in the groups. But yeah, so that was a great experience. I like the Underground Railroad stuff. Another permission I got, you're familiar with Boiling Springs Pool, maybe? Well, over at Boiling Springs, there was another Underground Railroad house, the Daniel Kaufman house. And if you're driving through Boiling Springs, there's a big plaque that says Daniel Kaufman and this big brick home. And I have been building up the courage to stop at this brick house and ask permission to detect there. And actually, I had a friend come down from Chambersburg to metal detect with me a while back. And we were at the Boiling Springs pool, I found some silver coins there last year before it got cold, but we haven't been able to find anything since. But we were out there, and across the spillway, because Boiling Springs was, iron production, and that's why the lake's there, and they hand dug spillway away from there, and so the pool is on one side and the spillway, and then there's this row of homes, and there's like this little grassy patch on the other side, and I'd been looking for this homestead that I saw on my 1850 map that was supposed to be on the Boiling Springs pool property. This is what I've been looking for. That's the whole reason I was detecting there, was to find the site of this old house. And sure enough, across the spillway comes this woman, and she's picking up trash and garbage and stuff. And I was like, do you know anything about an old house that used to be here on the property? And she's like, what old house are you, what do you know about an old house? So I was like, well, I had this old map, and I saw that there was used to be a structure here. She's like, well, it was never on that side of the spillway. It was on this side of the spillway, and it was Daniel Kaufman's barn. And I'm like, wait, what? Daniel Kaufman's barn, his house is down there. Well, apparently, I guess the story goes that Daniel Kaufman actually owned a house right there on the spillway. And then after he was involved in the Underground Railroad and hiding slaves on the Boiling Springs pool property, he had actually built the brick house. So the brick house was post-Underground Railroad, after he'd been sued by a Maryland slave owner for having slaves, for stealing slaves. So I stumbled upon this epic permission that I'd been trying to build up the courage to ask for. And not only that, but her and her husband work for the Cumberland County Historical Society. So through that permission, I've been able to go to them with any places that I found and say, hey, you know, do you know the history of this? What's the history of that? So it's been just amazing. I was so blown away by that permission. So now I have 2 stops on the Underground Railroad that were one right after the other. So, you know, that's how the slaves traveled, was from one to the other. So, yeah. So I have those 2 permissions, and they've been really great. I haven't had a chance to really do the Daniel Kaufman house yet, but when we were there, we were pulling some stuff out. We found a musket ball over by the barn. We found some old hand-thrown bricks, and bricks are like whatever, but I get really excited when I find bricks. I don't know why. It's just like the thought of them, like hand pressing them, is just really exciting for me. Yeah, and I guess lately I've been kind of on a glassware kick. Whenever I was running my own estate liquidation business, I've always been about vintage glassware. I mean, that was my expertise, is carnival glass, American pressed glass. I just love glassware. And obviously, I mean, I started with dump digging, so I was digging out bottles and old crocks and stuff, so that's kind of always been what I've gravitated towards. And lately, I've been trying to locate a privy on one of the properties that I'm digging. The other day, I dug a 4-foot hole and didn't find anything, and then I filled it all back in and I left. Yeah, I was talking to some of my fellow privy diggers who are like more experienced than me, and they're like, yeah, if you don't hit anything at 2 feet, we usually stop digging. And I was up to here in this hole, and it was like, there's nothing in there. But yeah, I guess I should probably tell you more about my machines. After the 250, I eventually upgraded to the AT Pro. So that's what I've been running now. And I actually use the 5.8 DD coil on it. I usually use that unless I'm doing a wider space, and then I use the 8x11. And for my husband's birthday, I bought him the Deus, which I try to steal anytime he's not using it because I absolutely love it. He does really well with the Deus. It's actually, he puts me to shame. He's always, just last week he pulled out 2 large cents, a Barber dime, a Mercury dime. Just so frustrating. I'm like, can I use it now? But yeah, my husband used to make fun of me for metal detecting. He said I looked like a dork. But then, yeah, he would make fun of me a lot. Oh, I guess you're going metal detecting. You look like a dork. And, but eventually, kind of, he's always been a coin collector, so for him, the idea of being able to find coins was like, that's eventually what pushed him over the edge, and he ended up coming out with me and detecting. And now I get the permissions, and he gets to detect them, which doesn't seem fair to me. He's finding all the cool stuff, and I'm like, crowbar, woohoo! But yeah, I don't know, does anyone have any questions? Like,
Have you worked in water at all, creeks or streams?
I have tried the creeks. Actually, I was over at Pine Grove Furnace in the creek for a little while. Actually, it wasn't even summer yet, and I was in the creek. It was a little bit cold. I tried a little bit, but I didn't have my my waterproof pinpointer yet, and I'm so dependent on my pinpointer, it's pathetic. But I didn't have it yet, so I got a really good hit, and I was digging through the rocks, and I just couldn't recover it in time because the kids were drowning over it. Yeah, whenever I go detecting, I usually have to drag my kids along, and they're always like, oh, we have to go metal detecting. But we just realized that my son has this, one of those battery-powered Jeeps, so we tie that to the top of the car wherever we're going. And we get to these old home sites, it's like, all right, go play in the Jeep. And he just buzzes around with his sister in the passenger seat. And it seems to work out for a little while, and then once the battery's dead, it's pretty much over. But yeah, so I usually have one on my back. If you check out my blog, you'll probably see I have one of those hiking carriers, and I put my daughter on my back. And I've got my son on the leash. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, don't do that. But I've got him by the hand to make sure he's not getting into trouble.
Good idea. We ought to all put
But we have a lot of
Cat on her
fun.
back.
My son,
you know, yeses.
he tries to metal detect, but he hasn't really gotten the hang of it yet. But someday, he's an aspiring detectorist. So. But yeah. Anyone else?
Come on, load her up with questions.
I'm better at questions than I am.
What's the oldest coin you found so far?
Oldest coin I've found so far is 19, not that old. It was I think it was a mercury dime. It was early 1900s. Yeah. My husband just pulled out yesterday or the day before. Pulled out an 1816 large cent. Like with the dais, of course, after a spot that I'd already gone over with the AT Pro, and I was like, darn you! So yeah, he's got me beat on that category.
How about your favorite bottle?
What's that?
Your favorite bottle?
My favorite bottle?
Yeah, that you found.
I just love medicine bottles. I mean, I found over at my uncle's property over in Dillsburg, he kind of lived on the town dump, and there was this tree in his backyard, and I was just like going around his property. Well, first of all, he had these he was in charge of taking down street lamps in Mount Holly Springs whenever they converted their street lamps. And they used to have those radio wave lamps. I don't know if some people remember them. But when he took them down, he just dumped them all in his backyard. So he came to me one day, he's like, hey, are those old insulator things worth anything? I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I got a whole ton of them in my backyard if you want to come look at them. Okay. So I went over, and they're street lamp heads, but they look like enormous insulators. There's the ceramic ones, they're like this big. I loaded up my car, and I took them, and I sold them on eBay. But while I was like tooling around, I found this giant tree, and there's glass shards underneath the tree. And I dug at that tree, and I mean, they had been there so long that they had grown into the tree. And there was this medicine bottle that it was Dr. Fisher, Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. I was like, that's really neat. But there were shards of old Crocs there, and nothing was complete. I was like, come on. I told my uncle, I'm digging at this spot until I find something whole. But I dug till I couldn't dig anymore. There was nothing else there. But yeah, that was really cool. I think just the connection to Dillsburg and stuff, I thought that regardless of the value. For me, it's not really about the value, it's about the experience. So, yeah. And my carnival glass, of course. I love carnival glass. But I didn't dig that. I just find that at yard sales.
Are you going to join the club?
I am actually now a member of the club.
Oh, congratulations.
The speech has earned me a membership, courtesy of Bill. So, and my husband too, but he's not here today, so.
He's coming.
What's that?
I thought you said he was coming.
I thought he was too.
You should check the phone. He's not
I
still
know,
driving
he's not
around, is he?
answering, he's not answering the phone, so I'm texting my parents like, can you please check on him? What's going on? And so, my husband might be in a car accident, but.
Anybody else? Any questions?
Very good.
Good?
Thank you.